present a bill for an act to amend the Central Banking Act 2000. The Treasurer further gives notice that they shall present a bill for an act to amend the Regulatory Statutory Authorities Appointment to Certain Offices Act 2004.
Papers? Minister for Environment, Conservation and Climate Change.
So there should be. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to statutes, I present the following treaty documents. A, Doha Amendment to the Kyoto Protocol, and B, Statute of the International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA. Mr. Speaker, I now ask leave for the Parliament to make a statement in connection with the treaties.
Leave granted. Mr. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It gives me great pleasure to present to the National Parliament today the notice to ratify the Doha Amendment to the Kyoto Protocol. The background. The Doha Amendment refers to the changes made to the Kyoto Protocols in 2012 after the first commitment period of the Kyoto Protocol concluded. The amendment adds new emission reductions targets for second commitment period 2012 to 2020 for participating countries. The Doha Amendment establishes the protocol's second commitment period from 2013 to 2020. It was adopted by Decision Number 1 CMP 8 at the 8th session of the Conference of the Parties, serving as the meeting of the parties to the Kyoto Protocol, CMP 8, in Doha, Qatar, in 2012. The amendments will enter into force when 144 parties, or 3/4 of parties to the Kyoto Protocol, have submitted the instruments of acceptance to the depository. On 21st December 2012, this Doha Amendment was circulated by the Secretary General of the United Nations, acting in his capacity as depository to all parties to the Kyoto Protocol in accordance with Article 20 and 21 of the Protocol. Pursuant to Article 21, Paragraph 7 and Article 20, Paragraph 4, the amendment is subject to acceptance by parties to the Kyoto Protocol in accordance with Article 20, Paragraph 4. The amendment will enter into force for those parties having accepted it on the 19th day after the date of receipt by the depository of an instrument of acceptance by at least 3/4 of the parties to the Kyoto Protocol. This means that a total of 144 instruments of acceptance are required for the entry into force of the amendment. On 17 January 2018, the President of COP23/CMP13//CMA 1.2 and the Executive Secretary of the Climate Change Secretariat issued a letter to the parties to the Kyoto Protocol urging them to accept the Doha Amendment as soon as possible. Mr. Speaker, in paragraph 5 of Decision 1/CMP8, the CMP recognized that parties may provisionally apply the amendment pursuant its entry into force in accordance with Articles 20 and 21 of the protocols, and requires parties intending to do so to provide notification of any such provisional applications to the depository. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, in accordance with paragraph 6 of the same decision, parties that do not provisionally apply the amendment under paragraph 5 will implement their commitments and other responsibilities in relation to the second commitment period in a manner consistent with their national legislation or domestic processes as of 1 January 2013 and pending the entry into force of the amendment. Mr. Speaker, on the status of the ratification of the Doha Amendment, as of June 20, 2020, 140 parties have deposited their instruments of acceptance. Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, Papua New Guinea's status as it is. On a later dated 17th January 2018, the COP presidency of COP23 CMP 13 Postless CMA 1.4, His Excellency Frank Bananamara and Excellency Patricia Espinosa, Executive Secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, urge all governments who are parties to the Kyoto Protocol to accept the Doha Amendment as soon as possible. Mr. Deputy Speaker, Papua New Guinea shared a view with all parties that pre-2020 implementation and ambitions are of the utmost importance. Entry into legal force of the Doha Amendment to the Kyoto Protocol is a valuable part of global climate action for the years leading up to 2020 and critical for the rigorous and successful implementation of the second commitments period. Mr. Deputy Speaker, Papua New Guinea will ratify the Doha Amendment of the Kyoto Protocol that will commit parties, especially the Annex 1 parties, to contain the emission of greenhouse gases and reaffirming its stand on climate action globally. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the second commitment period, that is 2013 to 2020, of the second Kyoto Protocol, or now called the Doha Amendment, includes new commitment of parties to the protocol to take drastic action for this commitment period and to revise its list of greenhouse gases to be reported. Mr. Deputy Speaker, ratifying the Doha Amendment will now reaffirm Papua New Guinea's commitment to climate action by highlighting the government's climate plan to be taken that are stated in our action documents, such as the Vision 2050, the Medium-Term Development Goals number 3, and the National Determined Contributions, or NDC. It will also encourage other developing countries, mainly Pacific Island countries, if not yet ratified, to undertake this approach in order to attract investment from developed countries to implement our plans as stated in the current NDC, or National Determined Contributions, and the current amended NDC, which is scheduled to be submitted to the UNFCCC in December 2020. In actual fact, Mr. Deputy Speaker, Papua New Guinea was one of the first few countries in the world to do so, and it was launched by our Prime Minister, the Honorable James Marape, on the 18th of December 2020. The Kyoto Protocol is based on the principle of equity and common, but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities. It places obligations on developed nations, Annex 1 countries, to undertake mitigations targets to reduce emissions and provide financial resources and technology to developing nations. Thus, developing countries like Papua New Guinea have no mandatory mitigation obligations or targets under the Kyoto Protocols. The ratification will now pave way for the country to negotiate future investment in our mitigation actions, which is, of course, can be achieved as per IRENA. Members, through you, Deputy Speaker, honourable members, I seek your pursuant to support in endorsing the ratification of the Doha amendments to the Kyoto protocols. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
The question is that the question be put. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. The Honourable Minister for Environment and Conservation.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I seek leave of the Parliament to move a motion without notice.
Is the leave granted? Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker and Parliament. Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, I move that in accordance with Section 117, Subclause 5A of the Constitution, this Parliament waive Sections 117, Subsection 3 of the Constitution, which requires a treaty document to be presented to the Parliament for at least 10 sitting days before Papua New Guinea can be bound as a party, insofar as that provision applies to ratification. Of the Statute of the International Renewable Energy, IRENA. Okay, sorry. Okay. So yeah, this one, yeah. This one, okay. Okay, sorry, Speaker, which is the one that I need to press? Thank you. Mr. Deputy Speaker, that provisions applies to ratifications are that A, Doha amendments to the Kyoto Protocol, and B, Statute of the International Renewable Agency, IRENA.
Honourable members, the motion must be supported in an absolute majority. Sorry, honourable members, the question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favour say aye. Honourable members, the motion here must be supported by an absolute majority of 56 members. Would those in favour of the motion please stand? Those against, please stand. Honorable members, those who voted in support of the motion, 49, noes, 0. The motion is not carried. Is leave granted?
I move that this vote be rescinded and deferred to a subsequent vote. Sitting. Thank you.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Ayes have it.